My beloved child, stay with me for these few moments and allow the noise around you to grow quiet. Do not rush away simply because you have learned to keep moving whenever something begins to touch the places you have tried so hard to protect. You have carried more than most people realize, and much of what has exhausted you has never been visible to those around you. They have seen you continue. They have watched you answer messages, fulfill responsibilities, show up when you were needed, smile when the moment required it, and keep your life moving forward as though nothing inside you were breaking. But I have seen what happened after the room became quiet. I have seen the moments when your strength disappeared because there was no longer anyone watching. I have seen you sit alone and wonder how much longer you could continue carrying everything without falling apart. I have seen the nights when sleep did not bring rest because your mind kept returning to the same questions. I have seen you replay conversations, reconsider decisions, imagine different outcomes, and wonder whether one mistake changed the course of everything. You have asked yourself whether you should have spoken differently, acted sooner, waited longer, trusted more, or walked away earlier. You have examined your own heart so many times that you have sometimes turned reflection into punishment. You have tried to find the exact moment when things became so heavy, believing that if you could understand everything, perhaps the pain would finally make sense. But I want you to know that none of those hidden moments were hidden from me. I was there when your prayer did not sound like a prayer. I was there when there were no beautiful words, no confidence, no carefully arranged sentences, and no strength to explain what you needed. You thought prayer had to sound certain, but some of the most honest prayers you have ever offered came when certainty had disappeared. Sometimes all you could say was, "Lord, I am tired." Sometimes your only request was, "Please do not let me go through this alone." Sometimes you began to speak and could not finish. Sometimes the tears came before the words. Sometimes you sat in silence because even naming what hurt felt like too much. Yet silence did not prevent me from hearing you. I heard what your lips could not explain. I heard the fear behind the sigh, the disappointment behind the quiet, the longing beneath the exhaustion, and the question buried underneath everything else. Do you still see me? Yes, my beloved child, I see you. I saw you when you stood beneath running water longer than necessary because you needed somewhere private to cry. I saw you sitting in your car before walking inside, gathering enough strength to become the person everyone expected you to be. I saw you wake in the morning already tired, wondering how a new day could begin when the heaviness of yesterday had never truly left. I saw you respond with ordinary words while something inside you was pleading for rest. I saw you keep commitments because you did not want to disappoint anyone, even when you felt as though there was nothing left inside you to give. And I heard every prayer that rose from those places. Do not measure the value of your prayer by how powerful you felt when you prayed it. Do not assume that weakness made your words less worthy of being heard. You have sometimes believed that faith means approaching me without questions, but your questions did not frighten me. Your disappointment did not drive me away. Your tears did not make you unacceptable. There were moments when you were afraid to admit what you truly felt because you thought honesty might sound ungrateful. You saw others receiving things you had prayed for, and jealousy entered your heart. You watched other lives appear to move forward while yours seemed suspended in the same unanswered place. You tried to celebrate for them while quietly asking why your own story remained unchanged. You were angry at times because you tried to do what was right and still encountered pain. You wondered whether your prayers mattered. You wondered whether you had somehow been overlooked. You even wondered whether you had disappointed me so deeply that I had withdrawn from you. But none of those thoughts erased my attention toward you. In fact, the moment you stopped hiding behind the words you thought you were supposed to say and finally told me what was actually happening within you, something changed in your relationship with me. You were no longer performing strength. You were bringing me your heart. That sincerity mattered. I did not require you to arrive polished. I did not ask you to pretend that you were peaceful when you were afraid, grateful when you were disappointed, or strong when you were exhausted. I wanted the truth, because truth is where healing can begin. You have spent a long time trying to convince yourself that you are fine because admitting how tired you are seemed dangerous. You feared that if you allowed yourself to feel the full weight of everything, you might not know how to stand again. So you kept moving. You filled the hours. You completed the next task. You took care of what others needed. You kept conversations light when your heart was heavy. You told yourself that tomorrow would be easier, and when tomorrow felt the same, you simply tried harder. But your exhaustion has not come only from what you have been carrying. It has also come from believing that you must carry it without being fully seen. That belief has made every burden heavier. You have felt responsible for holding everything together, while privately wondering who would hold you if your strength finally failed. Hear me clearly now. You have never been unseen. You have never had to earn my attention by becoming stronger. You did not need to impress me with endurance. I was present when you could barely pray, and I was present when you stopped praying because disappointment had made you afraid to hope. I know that part of your heart has become guarded. You have heard encouraging words before. You have believed promises before. You have allowed yourself to hope before, only to wake up and discover that the circumstances were still the same. That is why, even now, while part of you wants to believe, another part remains cautious. You are afraid that hope will make the pain deeper if nothing changes. You are afraid to open your heart completely because you remember what it felt like to wait for something that never came. You remember watching expectations disappear. You remember giving your best and wondering why it still seemed insufficient. I am not asking you to pretend those experiences never happened. I am asking you to stop using them as proof that I was absent. Your pain was real, but so was my presence. Your confusion was real, but so was my attention. Your exhaustion was real, but so was the prayer rising from within it. Every trembling word, every tear, every silent cry, every moment when you turned your heart toward me reached its destination. Nothing sincere was wasted. Nothing honest was ignored. You may not yet understand what will come from those prayers, but before you ask what happens next, I want this truth established deeply within you. You were heard. You were heard when you felt strong, and you were heard when you felt empty. You were heard when your faith felt steady, and you were heard when all you could offer was a whisper. You were heard when you asked clearly, and you were heard when pain made language impossible. You have not disappeared from my sight simply because the answer has not yet taken the form you expected. Your name has not been forgotten. Your heart has not been overlooked. So, for this moment, stop trying to prove that you can carry everything. Allow yourself to be known as you are. Bring me the tiredness you keep hiding, the questions you keep repeating, the disappointment you are ashamed to admit, and the hope you are afraid to feel again. You do not need to clean any of it before bringing it to me. Your hidden prayer was heard, my beloved child. Your tears were seen. Your silence was understood. And even in the season when you wondered whether heaven had become quiet toward you, you were never speaking into emptiness. Now that you know your prayer was heard, I want you to understand something about the season that followed it. You looked around and expected that being heard would immediately mean seeing change. You believed that if your prayer truly reached me, your circumstances should begin to look different quickly. You watched for the message, the opportunity, the open door, the restored relationship, the answer, or the unmistakable sign that would prove something had shifted. When those things did not appear, you began to interpret silence as inactivity. Days passed, then weeks, and sometimes much longer, and the same questions returned. If you heard me, why does everything still look the same? Why am I still here? Why has nothing moved? But, my beloved child, what you could see was never the whole story. You were measuring movement only by visible results, while much of what I was doing had already begun beyond the reach of your eyes. You called it delay because you could not yet see the destination drawing nearer. I called it preparation because I could see every part that needed to be placed before you arrived. There are things that must happen before an answer can safely become part of your life. An obstacle may need to be removed. A circumstance may need to change, a heart may need to soften, a conversation may need to occur somewhere you cannot hear it. A decision may need to be made by someone you have never met. A door may need to remain closed until what stands behind it is ready. Something may need to leave your path before something healthier can enter it. You see one moment at a time, but I see how one moment touches another. You see the door in front of you, while I see what is behind it, what will happen after you enter, what it will ask of you, and where that road will eventually lead. That is why not every delay has been an absence of love. Some delays have been one of the ways my love protected you. You remember opportunities you wanted desperately and could not understand why they disappeared. You remember relationships you believed would become permanent, only to watch them change or end. You remember plans that seemed perfect until circumstances interrupted them. You prayed for certain doors to open, returned to them repeatedly, and wondered whether you simply needed more faith, more effort, more patience, or another attempt. You saw those closed doors as judgments about your worth. You wondered whether you were not talented enough, lovable enough, prepared enough, spiritual enough, or deserving enough. But rejection does not always tell you who you are. Sometimes it tells you where you were never meant to remain. Some doors did not close because you lacked value. They closed because the price of walking through them would eventually have been greater than you understood at the time. There were places you wanted because you could see the immediate promise but not the hidden cost. There were connections you fought to preserve because losing them felt unbearable. But I could see how slowly you were beginning to silence yourself in order to keep them. There were opportunities you believed would prove that your life was finally moving forward, yet behind them were demands that could have consumed the peace you were asking me to restore. You grieved what disappeared because you could only mourn what you knew. I was also considering what you did not yet know. This does not mean every disappointment was easy, and it does not mean pain should be renamed as something pleasant. I know that some endings hurt deeply. I know that some unanswered questions followed you for a long time. I know there were nights when you asked why I allowed you to become hopeful if the outcome would be different from what you expected. But there are forms of mercy that do not feel merciful when you first encounter them. A barrier can feel cruel when you are convinced that everything you desire is waiting on the other side. Only later do you sometimes realize that the barrier kept you from walking farther into something that would have required you to lose parts of yourself you had not yet learned to protect. You believed I was keeping something good from you, while I was sometimes keeping you from accepting something incomplete simply because you were tired of waiting. There were also times when my answer was not no, but not yet. You treated those two words as though they meant the same thing because waiting hurt. Yet preparation has a purpose that rejection does not. A responsibility can be good and still arrive too early. A relationship can contain promise and still require growth before it can become healthy. An opportunity can belong in your future and still become destructive if it reaches you before you have the strength, clarity, or stability to carry it. You often think only about receiving what you prayed for, but I also think about what happens after you receive it. I care about whether the gift can remain a gift in your hands. I care about whether the new season can stand securely rather than collapse beneath patterns that have not yet been addressed. That is why there were periods that looked empty to you but were not empty at all. I was clearing space. Certain things became uncomfortable because you were no longer meant to depend on them in the same way. Conversations that once seemed normal began to exhaust you. Environments you once worked hard to fit into started to feel too small. Habits that once distracted you from your pain no longer offered the same relief. You wondered why familiar things were suddenly losing their comfort, but sometimes the loss of comfort is what causes you to recognize that a season is changing. If everything old had continued satisfying you, you might never have looked beyond it. If every familiar place had remained comfortable, you might have spent years trying to make a permanent home in a place that was only meant to teach you something for a season. I allowed certain things to lose their hold so that you could begin noticing what your heart had been too busy surviving to recognize. Yet I do not want you to become obsessed with interpreting every inconvenience as a sign. You do not need to chase symbols, analyze every coincidence, or force meaning into every small event. My work is not revealed through frantic searching. There are changes that become clear precisely because you do not have to manufacture them. Truth has a way of becoming more recognizable with time. What belongs to the next chapter will not require you to invent evidence every day in order to convince yourself that something is happening. For now, understand that silence does not mean everything is standing still. Think of how much must happen before something you can finally see appears. Long before a door opens before you, circumstances may already be shifting behind it. Long before an answer reaches your hands, pieces may already be moving into place. Long before you recognize that your life has changed, there may be small adjustments occurring quietly, one after another, each too subtle to seem important by itself. One day, you may look backward and realize that what felt like an ordinary season was actually where the turning began. You may recognize that a conversation you almost ignored redirected you. A delay you resented protected you from arriving too soon. An ending you mourned created room you later needed. A change you resisted removed something that would have prevented the next season from taking root. What once looked disconnected may eventually reveal a pattern you could not have understood while standing inside it. This is why I am teaching you not to demand the complete map before you take the next step. You have often believed that peace would come if only you knew everything ahead of you. You wanted to know how the story would unfold, when the answer would come, which road would succeed, and whether the effort would be worth it. But if I placed the entire road before you at once, you would carry tomorrow before tomorrow arrived. You would begin preparing for conversations months away, solving problems that do not yet exist, and worrying about turns you have not reached. You have already exhausted yourself enough by living beyond the day in front of you. I am giving you another way to walk. You do not need light for the entire road at once. You need enough light to recognize the next faithful step. Tomorrow will have what tomorrow requires. Today, attend to what has actually been placed before you. There is grace available here that you will miss if you remain constantly leaning into a future you cannot yet enter. The answer to your prayer is not dependent upon your ability to predict every part of its arrival. You do not have to force movement simply because movement is not visible. You do not have to reopen doors that have closed merely because the hallway feels quiet. You do not have to interpret every pause as evidence that you have been forgotten. There are seasons in which the most important work is happening beneath the surface. Roots grow where no one applauds them. Foundations are formed before anything impressive can be built upon them. Space is cleared before something new can stand securely within it. So do not despise the hidden work simply because it gives you nothing dramatic to display. Some of the most important answers to your prayers began long before you recognized them as answers. My beloved child, what you called delay was not always delay. What you called emptiness was not always empty. What you called rejection was not always a statement about your worth. Some of it was protection. Some of it was preparation. Some of it was space being made for what could not safely enter while the old things still occupied every part of your life. You do not yet need to know every detail of what is ahead. It is enough to understand that the silence you feared has not meant abandonment, and the waiting you resisted has not been meaningless. The road has been moving even when your eyes could not trace its movement. Your task now is not to see everything. It is to remain attentive enough to recognize the next step when the light reaches it. As you move forward, there is something you must learn to recognize with greater clarity, because not every strong feeling is direction, not every urgent thought is wisdom, and not every open door is an answer simply because it appeared after a long season of waiting. You have become sensitive to changes around you because of what you have experienced. You notice shifts in tone, hesitation in conversations, silence where there was once a tension beneath words, and subtle changes that others may overlook. For a long time, you treated this sensitivity as a weakness. You wondered whether you were overthinking, feeling too much, asking too many questions, or making life unnecessarily complicated. But sensitivity itself is not the problem. The question is what governs it. When your sensitivity remains beneath the covering of peace, it can help you notice what deserves attention. When fear takes control of it, however, every uncertainty begins to look like danger, every delay becomes rejection, and every unfamiliar situation becomes something you must immediately solve. This is why I am teaching you to distinguish fear from wisdom. Fear has a familiar voice because you have listened to it for many years. It often speaks first, it arrives quickly, and demands immediate action. It says, "Do something now or you will lose everything." It tells you that silence must mean something terrible, that delay means the opportunity is disappearing, that hesitation is proof you are being rejected, and that uncertainty must be eliminated before you can have peace. Fear creates pressure. It makes you believe that if you do not act immediately, explain yourself immediately, answer immediately, decide immediately, or secure the outcome immediately, something valuable will be taken from you. Wisdom does not operate that way. Wisdom can call you to move, and sometimes the moment to act truly is near, but wisdom does not need chaos in order to guide you. It does not force you to betray your conscience in order to preserve an opportunity. It does not require you to become someone dishonest, desperate, or divided simply to keep a door from closing. When I lead you, there may still be uncertainty because you cannot see everything ahead. There may still be trembling because the road is unfamiliar. But beneath that trembling, there will be a deeper steadiness. You will not have to spend every hour persuading yourself that something is right. You will not have to silence every question simply because you are afraid that asking honestly will make the opportunity disappear. What is healthy can endure truth. What is right does not need deception to survive. What is meant to remain in your life will not require you to abandon your deepest values merely to keep it close. This matters because something can look like an answer without carrying the fruit of an answer. When you have waited a long time, almost any movement can feel significant. When you have felt lonely, attention can appear more meaningful than it truly is. When you have experienced lack, quick relief can seem like provision even when the cost is hidden. When you have prayed for change, an open door can become so exciting that you stop asking what is waiting on the other side. Longing can make you vulnerable to appearances. You may become tempted to call something good simply because it arrived quickly, or to call something destined simply because it stirred strong emotion within you. But strong emotion is not enough. A racing heart does not always mean confirmation. Excitement does not automatically mean peace. Familiar chemistry does not necessarily mean safety. Speed does not prove that grace is present. I want you to become patient enough to examine the fruit before you give something authority over your life. Ask deeper questions than you once asked. Do not only ask, "Is this door open?" Ask, "Who will I become if I walk through it?" Do not only ask, "Will this make me happy right now?" Ask, "Will this allow me to remain truthful?" Do not only ask, "Can I have this?" Ask, "Can I carry this without losing the peace I have been learning to protect?" Do not only ask whether someone wants you. Ask whether their presence allows you to remain honest, respected, and whole. Do not only ask whether an opportunity is impressive. Ask whether accepting it would require you to compromise what you already know is right. These questions are not signs that you lack faith. They are signs that you are learning not to surrender your judgment to immediate emotion. There was a time when you measured decisions mainly by what they promised to give you quickly. Now I am teaching you to measure them by what they produce over time. Look for lasting fruit, deeper peace, stronger integrity, honesty without fear, love without constant anxiety, responsibility without self-destruction, and the ability to rest without battling your conscience. Something may look beautiful and still require you to become smaller in order to keep it. Something may sound promising and still depend upon secrecy, pressure, manipulation, or constant uncertainty. Something may arrive wrapped in everything you thought you wanted and still lead you away from the person you are becoming. Do not condemn yourself if such things attract you. Familiar patterns often feel powerful, precisely because they are familiar. What you must change is not the fact that you notice them, but the authority you give them. You do not have to follow every attraction. You do not have to answer every invitation. You do not have to treat every opportunity as your final chance. Bring what appears before you into the light. Give it time. Allow questions to be asked. Observe whether words and actions remain consistent. Notice whether peace becomes clearer or whether you must continually manufacture it. If something requires you to rush so that you will not have time to think, pay attention. If it tells you that healthy questions are disloyal, pay attention. If maintaining it requires concealment, compromise, or the repeated betrayal of your conscience, do not call that guidance merely because you are afraid of losing it. My leading does not depend upon your panic. I do not need confusion to move you forward. I am teaching you to recognize a quieter voice, one that does not flatter you into carelessness or threaten you into immediate surrender. That voice may not answer every question at once, but it will give you enough clarity for what is before you. This discernment will grow through practice. You will not master it in a single moment, and I do not expect you to. There will still be times when fear speaks loudly. There will still be moments when old instincts tell you to react before you have had time to understand what you feel. But you are learning that the first voice is not always the truest voice. You are learning to wait long enough for peace to become distinguishable from panic. You are learning that what is meant for you does not need fear to keep you attached to it. My beloved child, this is how you will begin walking differently. You will stop treating urgency as proof, pressure as purpose, attention as love, and every open door as permission to enter. You will learn to examine the fruit, preserve your integrity, and allow truth enough time to reveal what excitement alone cannot show you. And as you become more discerning, you will begin to recognize something deeper within yourself. Much of the pressure you have felt did not come only from the choices before you, but from your need to know and secure every outcome before you were willing to move. Now I need you to face something deeper than the circumstances around you, because much of the pressure you have carried has come from the belief that you must know what will happen before you can feel safe. You want to see the road before you walk it. You want assurance that the person will not change, that the opportunity will remain, that the decision will succeed, and that the future will not bring another disappointment you did not prepare for. Part of you calls this caution, and some caution is wise. But beneath it, there is also a fear that began when life surprised you with pain. There were moments when you trusted a promise and watched it break. There were times when you opened your heart and received distance instead of warmth. You stood before doors you were certain would open, only to watch them close without the explanation you desperately wanted. After enough experiences like these, you made an agreement within yourself. Never again would you be caught unprepared. So you began examining everything. You studied silence, measured changes in tone, replayed conversations, anticipated possibilities, and tried to predict what people might do before they did it. You began looking for an escape route before entering the room. You wanted certainty before taking the step, answers before asking the question, and guarantees before allowing yourself to trust. You believed that if you could understand enough, prepare enough, and remain alert enough, you could protect yourself from ever being hurt in the same way again. But control cannot heal the fear beneath it. It can only make fear appear responsible. It can convince you that constant vigilance is wisdom, even while your heart remains exhausted from trying to manage things that were never yours to manage. I am not condemning you for learning to survive this way. I know why you began. I saw the experiences that trained you to expect disappointment, and I understand why uncertainty became difficult for you. But a survival pattern that once helped you endure cannot be allowed to direct every part of your future. There are things I will ask you to place in my hands because they were never meant to remain clenched in yours. Surrender does not mean becoming careless. It does not mean ignoring wisdom, abandoning responsibility, or allowing other people to make your choices. I have given you a mind to think, a conscience to honor, boundaries to maintain, and decisions for which you are responsible. But there is a difference between responsibility and control. Responsibility asks, "What is mine to do?" Control insists, "I must determine how everything turns out." Responsibility allows you to speak truth and then release how others respond. Control keeps you awake trying to manage their interpretation. Responsibility allows you to prepare wisely. Control convinces you that no amount of preparation is ever enough. Responsibility makes a decision according to what you know. Control demands certainty about everything you cannot know. I am teaching you to recognize that difference. This lesson will reveal itself through small moments before it appears in larger ones. When a message goes unanswered, your mind may immediately begin creating explanations. You will want to interpret silence before you have facts. When a plan changes unexpectedly, you may feel the old impulse to assume that everything is beginning to collapse. When someone does not understand your boundary, you may want to explain yourself again and again until you have surrendered the very peace that boundary was meant to protect. When an opportunity develops more slowly than you hoped, you may be tempted to push, force, or manipulate circumstances because waiting makes you feel powerless. In those moments, I am asking you to respond differently. Do not pretend that you are not afraid. Name what you feel. Say, "I am afraid because I do not know what will happen. I want to take control because uncertainty makes me uncomfortable. I am imagining an outcome that has not yet occurred." Then bring that fear to me before you allow it to become the authority behind your decision. Your first reaction does not have to become your final response. Fear often speaks first because it has had years of practice. It knows the familiar roads through your thoughts. It knows which memories to awaken and which possibilities will frighten you most. But the speed with which a thought arrives does not make it true. The loudness of a feeling does not give it authority. The fact that anxiety feels familiar does not mean it deserves obedience. Give peace enough time to speak. There will be moments when you desperately want me to remove every uncertainty. But there are seasons when I will not answer every question immediately because something important is being formed in the space of not knowing. You have often imagined that peace would come only after everything became certain. You thought you would finally rest when the relationship was secure, when the decision was settled, when the money arrived, when the door opened, when the problem disappeared, or when no possibility remained that could hurt you. But if your peace depends upon circumstances becoming completely predictable, your heart will always remain vulnerable to the next unexpected change. I am teaching you another kind of peace, one that can exist before all the answers arrive. Sometimes the miracle is not that every question disappears. Sometimes the miracle is that unanswered questions no longer determine the rhythm of your heart. Sometimes freedom is not knowing that nothing difficult can happen. It is knowing that you do not have to lose yourself when difficulty comes. This is also why certain good things could not arrive earlier. There was a time when you might have received them with hands so afraid of losing them that the blessing itself would have become another source of anxiety. You would have checked constantly, questioned every change, worked beyond your limits to prove that you deserved what you had received, and sacrificed your peace trying to prevent anyone from taking it away. Something meant to bring joy could have become another chain because fear would have taught you to hold it too tightly. I want you to receive what is good without living every day terrified that it will disappear. I want you to understand that your safety is not found in possessing every key, predicting every outcome, or preventing every disappointment. Your task is to remain faithful to what has actually been placed in your hands. Speak when you need to speak. Wait when there is nothing wise to force. Make amends when you are wrong. Protect what you are responsible for. Take the next step when it becomes clear. Then release the part that does not belong to you. You cannot control who stays, who leaves, who changes their mind, who misunderstands you, or how every chapter will unfold. But you can choose whether fear will be allowed to sit at the center of your decisions. Open your hand, my beloved child. You do not need to hold the entire future tonight. Ask me to show you what belongs to your responsibility, and let me carry what does not. The future was never meant to be secured by the strength of your grip. You are learning that peace does not begin when you finally control everything. Peace begins when you no longer believe that you must. As you release the need to control every outcome, you will begin to notice that something deeper has already been changing within you. The circumstances around you may not yet look completely different, but you are no longer responding to them in the same way. This change may seem small at first, so small that you are tempted to overlook it, but I want you to recognize it for what it is. There was a time when one disappointing message could determine the mood of your entire day. A silence could send you searching for explanations. A misunderstanding could keep you awake at night. Someone's withdrawal could make you question your value, and an old door opening even slightly could pull your thoughts backward for hours. But now there will be moments when the same things happen, and you will pause. You will breathe. You will feel the emotion without immediately surrendering your judgment to it. You will realize that what once had the power to command you can no longer control you in the same way. This is not emotional coldness. It is not indifference. It is evidence that power is changing hands. Fear once held authority over many of your decisions. The past once interpreted the present before the present had the opportunity to speak for itself. The approval of others once determined whether you believed you were worthy, lovable, capable, or safe. But little by little, those false authorities are losing their place. You are learning that you do not need to win every argument to know that you have grown. You do not need the person who hurt you to finally understand everything before you can move forward. You do not need everyone to agree with your boundaries before those boundaries become valid. You do not need circumstances to apologize for the years that felt delayed before you allow yourself to live differently. I am returning to you the power to choose. The choice to wait before reacting, the choice to say no without hatred, the choice to speak honestly without becoming cruel, the choice to walk away without carrying revenge, and the choice to remain peaceful even when someone else refuses to understand you. For too long you have described yourself according to painful patterns. You have called yourself the one who is always left behind, the one who must fight for love, the one whose good things always arrive too late, the one who gives more than is returned, or the one who must work harder than everyone else just to receive a little peace. Those descriptions helped you explain what you experienced, but they were never meant to become your permanent identity. If you continue naming yourself according to an old season, you will bring old expectations into every new place. You will distrust kindness because you are waiting for it to disappear. You will test faithful people because betrayal is more familiar than consistency. You will become suspicious of peace because chaos once taught you that calm was only the silence before another storm. But familiarity is not the same as safety. Some situations feel familiar only because you suffered inside them long enough to learn every pattern. Some relationships feel familiar because you were always assigned the same role. You repaired, you waited, you forgave, you explained, you chased, and you returned. Familiarity can feel like home even when it has been draining your spirit. True safety allows you to breathe. Mature love does not require you to keep guessing where you stand. It does not use withdrawal to control you. It does not punish honesty. It does not demand that you abandon your conscience to preserve closeness. Where healthy love exists, truth is not treated as an enemy. This is why your boundaries are becoming important in a new way. You once believed that setting a boundary meant becoming unkind or selfish. You apologized excessively for needing space, rest, clarity, or respect. You explained yourself repeatedly because you feared that someone might misunderstand your intentions. But not every misunderstanding can be solved through more explanation. Some people hold tightly to the version of the story that allows them to avoid examining their own behavior. You cannot sacrifice your peace forever trying to convince someone to see what they have already decided not to see. Speak honestly, admit when you are wrong, make amends when amends are necessary. Then allow the truth to stand without spending your life defending it in every room. You are also beginning to see the habits you once used to escape from yourself. Sometimes you reached for your phone because silence made uncomfortable emotions rise. Sometimes you accepted more work because constant activity kept you from admitting how tired you had become. Sometimes you watched the lives of others because comparison felt easier than sitting with your own disappointment. Sometimes you returned to old memories not because there was something new to learn, but because part of you had developed the habit of punishing yourself with what could no longer be changed. These actions do not define you, but when they remain unconscious, they steal the attention you need in order to recognize what is actually happening within you. There are times when you say you are waiting for guidance while filling every quiet space so thoroughly that you cannot hear what has already become clear. You may already know the first step. It may be ending a conversation that repeatedly leaves you diminished, asking for help, taking necessary rest, changing a commitment that has become unhealthy, or ceasing to pursue something that responds only with confusion. I am not asking you to transform everything at once. I am teaching you not to use the desire for a perfect solution as an excuse to avoid one honest step. As these changes take root, your life will begin to develop a different rhythm. Prayer will no longer be only the place you run when you have reached the end of your strength. It will become where you seek direction before you move. Rest will no longer be a reward you allow yourself only after complete exhaustion. It will become part of faithful living. Boundaries will no longer require long apologies. They will become a way of protecting what has been entrusted to you. Work will no longer be the stage where you prove your worth. It will become something you can do from an identity that does not depend upon constant achievement. Love will no longer mean trying to force someone to stay. It will become a free and honest presence that knows how to give without losing itself. My beloved child, this is who you are becoming. You are not being asked to erase the past, but you are no longer required to live underneath its authority. Keep the wisdom it taught you, but release the identity it tried to impose upon you. You are learning to recognize peace without distrusting it, love without clinging to it, work without using it to prove your value, and truth without apologizing for its existence. You are no longer simply surviving what happened to you. You are becoming someone who can choose differently because the past no longer has the final word. You have asked what is drawing closer, and now I want you to understand what all this inner work has been preparing you to receive. A season of alignment is approaching, a season in which what begins to happen around you will increasingly correspond with what I have been forming within you. This does not mean that every difficulty will disappear or that every unanswered question will suddenly be resolved. It does not mean that life will become effortless. It means that you will begin to recognize more clearly what belongs, what does not, what strengthens your peace, and what repeatedly steals it. Your choices will no longer feel as tangled as they once did because you are no longer making them from the same place within yourself. The right connections will not require you to pretend to be someone you are not. Meaningful work will not demand that you destroy yourself in order to prove your worth. Peace will no longer feel like a stranger standing outside your life. It will become something you recognize, protect, and allow to guide the way you respond. You will begin to see that not every piece must be forced into the same picture. Some things did not fit because they were never meant to remain. Some relationships could not move forward without asking you to return to an unhealthy version of yourself. Some opportunities carried possibilities, but not the kind of fruit that could remain beside the person you were becoming. You once tried to make everything work because letting go felt like failure. Now you are learning that alignment sometimes requires the courage to stop forcing what continually resists truth. Yet there is one responsibility you must carry carefully as you enter this new season. Do not reopen the doors I helped you close simply because the new room is quiet. Quiet can feel uncomfortable when you have lived around noise for a long time. When conflict disappears, part of you may wonder what is wrong. When no one is demanding your attention, you may begin to miss being needed. When the old urgency is gone, you may mistake peace for emptiness. And in those moments, loneliness may paint the past more beautifully than it truly was. You may remember the good moments while forgetting the exhaustion. You may remember the affection while minimizing the confusion. You may remember how familiar something felt while forgetting how much of yourself you had to surrender in order to keep it. Do not allow nostalgia to rewrite the truth. Remember the price you paid to leave what repeatedly diminished you. Familiarity is not an invitation to return. An old pattern can knock again without having earned the right to enter. Something similar may appear through a different person, a different opportunity, or a different circumstance, carrying the same mixture of attraction and unease. This time, you will respond differently. You will pause before reacting. You will pray before explaining. You will observe before attaching meaning. You will examine the fruit before handing over the key to your heart. You will not call pressure guidance simply because someone insists that you decide quickly. You will not call ambiguity depth simply because uncertainty keeps you emotionally invested. You will not call repeated exhaustion love simply because you have known it for a long time. You will allow what is healthy enough time to demonstrate its consistency. You will give yourself permission to say, I need time to think. You will understand that what is genuine does not need your panic in order to survive. An opportunity that is truly right will not require you to betray your integrity simply to keep it from disappearing. A relationship that can become healthy will not be destroyed by honest questions, appropriate boundaries, or the time necessary for truth to become visible. You do not have to grasp what I give you with frightened hands. You do not protect a blessing by controlling it. You protect what is entrusted to you by walking in clarity, humility, integrity, and peace. This does not mean distrusting everything that enters your life. It means giving truth enough time to reveal itself. It does not mean running from every difficult moment. It means understanding that difficulty and dysfunction are not the same thing. Anything meaningful may require patience, sacrifice, courage, and growth. But what is healthy will not continually demand the loss of your conscience, dignity, and inner stability as the price of remaining. You cannot control who comes into your life, who eventually leaves, who changes, or who misunderstands you. You cannot determine every response another person will give, or guarantee that every road will unfold exactly as you hope. But you can choose which voices are allowed to remain in your thoughts after the conversation has ended. You can choose what you continue rehearsing in the quiet. You can choose whether fear will be fed or whether truth will be given room to speak. When your heart becomes unsettled, open your hand instead of tightening your grip. Name the thing you are trying to control. Do not bring me your entire future as though it must be solved in one moment. Bring me one thing. Ask, show me what belongs to my responsibility, and release me from what does not belong to me. Then act faithfully on what becomes clear. Maintain one boundary, speak one truth, take the rest your body and spirit need, complete the responsibility already before you. Step away from the conversation you know should end. Stop pursuing what has answered you only with confusion. Take one small step that agrees with the truth you have already received. It does not have to impress anyone. It does not have to look dramatic. Faithfulness is not measured by how visible the step appears to others. Sometimes your greatest progress will be the decision not to return. Sometimes it will be your refusal to send the message fear is telling you to send. Sometimes it will be resting without guilt, speaking without over-explaining, or allowing silence to remain silence instead of filling it with imagined disaster. You do not need to promise that you will never feel afraid again. Fear may still visit, but it no longer has to become your master. You have reached a threshold, my beloved child. I have seen you in the private places no one else knows about. I heard the prayers you could barely form. I protected you through doors you once begged me to open. I used quiet seasons to make room within you. I taught you to recognize what fear sounds like, to release what you cannot control, and to stop defining yourself by what happened before. Now remain faithful to what comes next. Walk when I give you light. Wait when peace tells you not to force what is unfinished. Let go when the truth shows you that something no longer belongs in your hands. And when the right door opens, do not crawl through it as someone desperate to finally be chosen. Walk through it with dignity. Receive what comes with open hands rather than a clenched grip. You have not been forgotten. You are being guided. The prayer you once whispered in exhaustion has not disappeared, and the answer is not limited to what eventually changes around you. Part of the answer is already visible in who you have become. Carry that person forward. Do not return to what required you to abandon yourself. Remain faithful to the next step, and trust me with the road you cannot yet see.